Hello and welcome back to the Mindset Project podcast. My name is Lewis Conde and my aim is to give you the tools to develop and improve your mindset. By drawing on my own experiences as a competitive swimmer, as well as the opinions and experiences of other incredible individuals, I hope to expose you to an alternative way of thinking. And in doing so, I hope that inspires some sort of personal growth. I believe that through mindset development, we can strive physically, mentally and emotionally. I hope you're all doing well, staying positive and staying healthy. So let's get on to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Mindset Project podcast. I hope you enjoyed the last episode with Ashanti Johnson. Now, if you haven't listened to it yet, stop listening to this episode and go back and have a listen. This week's episode, I decided to call Stretch Your Muscles, Stretch Your Mind, and I really don't know what sort of direction of travel this is going to go in, but I had wrote it down on my list of episodes and my plan and stuff that I wanted to do, so this is this episode. Now, I do have an idea of what I want to talk about, so I don't think I just randomly wrote it down, so don't think this is just some random idea that I've had. So that is the name of the episode, and the theme of the topic which I will be talking about is stretching and the importance of stretching, and in some ways looking at yoga and how it can help us and how it's helped me feel more relaxed and more mindful, I guess, which is obviously good for your mindset. So I've been doing yoga for as long as I've been swimming, so I really started it because I actually wanted to be able to do the splits. I don't understand why I wanted to do the splits, but anyway, that's one of the reasons that got me into yoga. So I started incorporating yoga into my training as pre-training, pre-pool and post-training sort of recovery, and I would highly recommend anyone doing it, no matter your ability, if you're a bodybuilder, a cyclist, a gymnast, a mountain biker or whatever. I think the benefits of yoga go above and beyond just stretching the muscles. I remember mentioning this in a previous episode, but yoga isn't hard. I say that it can be as hard or as easy as you want to make it. It is hard in a sense because you do need full focus on what you are doing, especially your breathing. You need to be aware of the positioning of your hands, your feet, and making sure that they're in the right position, because obviously if you don't have them in the right position, then there's a small chance that you may actually be doing a position wrong, and that could lead to some sort of injury or pulling a muscle, which is kind of the opposite of what yoga is all about. So it is very important to have some sort of awareness or focus when you are doing yoga, which obviously requires some sort of mental capacity. And another thing to note as well is that with your breathing is also an important aspect of yoga, because your breathing normally kind of guides you throughout the practice. It's something that you should really be focusing on more than anything else, and how you breathe will kind of help your flow through the practice. So that was kind of a quick intro to yoga and kind of a little bit of context into my sort of experience a little bit. And you've probably started asking yourself, why am I talking about this? Well, if we go back to the name of the episode, Stretch Your Muscles, Stretch Your Mind, I think through stretching, ever doing it just a standard stretching, with a foam roller, a hockey ball, just static stretching, or indeed yoga, we can actually relax our mind. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever had a day where you've been you've had like a really heavy leg day in the gym, and then the next day your legs are so sore and tight that you actually struggle to walk. Now that tightness could be from various factors. It could be failing to warm up properly. It could be not stretching after your workout, so you're not recovering as efficiently. Or it could just be that you've just been working really hard. And now the tightness, most likely DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness, will more than likely make you think about that tightness, if that makes sense. It kind of like takes your thoughts towards that pain, if that makes sense. Almost as if like your thoughts are diverted towards that source of pain. And I've been there, and it is actually really hard to think about anything other than the tightness, especially if it's the sort of tightness where your legs are literally so sore that you can't even sit on the toilet. Like that's one of the worst pains ever. But it's a good thing because it means you're working hard. And that one is like, if you want to say it politely, is another biatch. But now, but once you stretch that muscle or those muscles, you automatically feel better because like that tightness is easing, right? Which makes me believe that when you stretch your muscles, you're actually easing that mental tension because there's less tension in your muscles. The mental tension is also easing as well because you're not thinking about it as much. And again, some of the things I say on this podcast are completely unproven. Like it's just a complete utter theory on my behalf. But even if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. And when you have you've had a good stretch, you just feel light. Like everything, your muscles just feel nice and light. You just feel good, and it is just a nice and relaxed feeling. And if your body is relaxed, then obviously your mind should be relaxed as well. And I actually think stretching in general is a very underutilized component of any sort of training program. Now, I regard stretching really highly, and if anything, it's just as important as anything else. It's like you're kind of... And in some cases, I actually think I may stretch too much, but I've never actually had any major injuries so far, touch wood. So it must, obviously what I think as overstretching could actually be a good thing because I stretch so much. I'm almost kind of like making sure the risk of injury is at the minimum. And the reason I say this is because it is the thing that is actually going to prevent any sort of injury. So having a robust stretching or recovery routine will actually really help with recovery, and ultimately it will improve your performance as well because you won't need to spend as much time recovering. Like stretching before and after an exercise will reduce the chance and effects of DOMS and the days following a tough training session. I also find stretching just before bed really helpful to go to sleep because my muscles are nice and relaxed. So if you're relaxed before bed, you should fall asleep slightly quicker or more efficiently. And I can't really find the words to describe it, but when you stretch and you have a good stretch session or do yoga, you just feel really good. It's just like your muscles are nice and light. Everything just feels right, which is obviously a lot better feeling than really tight muscles, tight back, tight shoulders, tight legs. Any sort of tightness in your muscles is just not a good feeling. Because in some ways as well, it kind of, because it's tight, it kind of reduces your range of movement as well, which isn't a good feeling because you feel like you just walk like a plank of wood a little bit. But yeah, one thing I also like about yoga is that because of the awareness we need to have, either through the positioning of our hands, our feet, or even just our breathing, we are in some ways becoming mindful. And we know, having spoke about it in an earlier episode, that mindfulness is really good for our mind. So stretching doesn't just help us release tension from our muscles, but it can actually help release tension in our minds. And I think that's kind of the key thing of this episode, is that when we stretch our muscles, and we release that tension, we're kind of releasing the mental tension as well, because we're not really thinking about that tightness or that soreness in some cases. Obviously, having sore muscles is not a good thing, but if it's like if it's a good sore, then you know what I'm saying. Like, if you've been in the gym and you've had a tough session, you know what I'm trying to like say. Like, it's a good sore, and like you get a bad sore. And yeah, like when we do kind of have that soreness or tightness, I don't know why, but we sometimes kind of, our thoughts are kind of directed to the source of that, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I think that's why stretching for me is a good thing. So I guess to kind of conclude, stretching is something that's really underutilized, and you know, you don't really need to do yoga to kind of find the benefits mentally. Even just a standard stretch, like if you have a foam roller or hockey ball, just something that kind of releases tension in your muscles. I think that's as well, like when we, you know, if you've ever had like if you've got tight muscles or had a tough gym session, you might go into like a warm bath or a warm shower, and because the heat of the water has kind of released the tension in your muscles, you feel a lot better mentally as well as physically, because that tension is like, even if it's like short-lived, it's not there as prominent as it was before you went in the bath. So I definitely think there is a link between having a good stretch and relaxed muscles and tension in their minds. So yeah, make sure you're stretching every day, even like in the morning. That's a great example as well. Just stretch in the morning, even if it's like 5-10 minutes, just something light. I always recommend people to stretch before bed as well. Personally, this is kind of like part of my like bedtime routine. I think it's just good to kind of, you know, zone out, kind of relax your mind, relax the muscles as well, just before you go into bed. It's always a good thing to try. So if you want to kind of, you know, change up your morning routine or your bedtime routine, add in a little bit of stretching, I'd highly recommend it. So yeah, that was this episode. It's really, really short. I wasn't really wanting it to be a really big one. Like, I don't really know what else you can say about stretching your muscles to stretch your mind. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that. It was a really quick one, like I just said. Hope you kind of found something sort of useful from it, and yeah, that is the end of this episode. And with that, I'll say stay positive, stay healthy, stay grateful, and keep stretching. And I shall see you on the next one. Almost forgot that one there.